Who's going to lead the Arizona Cardinals with Budda Baker out? Let's discuss.
You are Locked On Cardinals, your daily Arizona Cardinals podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Alex Clancy here. Follow me on Twitter at Clancy's Corner. Follow the podcast at Locked On AZ Cards. Thank you for making Locked On Cardinals your first listen each and every day, free wherever you get your podcast and on YouTube. I mean, here's the thing. Cardinals lost week 2, kind of yucky fashion. I've talked a lot about this already during the offseason, about this season. There's going to be a lot of big picture conversations to be had. And it's fun because you can talk about it as pertaining to right now and what next week could mean as the snowball slowly starts to roll downhill for what the future of this team is going to look like. So with that, I have a couple things to discuss today. First, Budda Baker out on IR, out at least 4 weeks. What does that mean? Who's going to lead this team? And, well, they're losing. So what does it matter with leadership? Leadership is everything. So that's very important, number one. Number two, if the Cardinals start 0-5, which they very well could, or 0-6 or 0-7, and then Kyler Murray comes back in week 7 or week 8, and, the team is already down, and, the defense isn't very good, talent-wise, as, correlated to the rest of the NFL, and, so many different factors. How are Monty Osborne and Jonathan Gannon going to gauge if Kyler Murray truly is their guy for the future to lead this team and pass on a guy like Caleb Williams if the Cardinals do get the number 1 overall pick? It's not as easy. It's not as cut and dry as, well, if he plays well, you do. If he doesn't need to, that it's not that simple. We're going to talk about it for an entire segment. And then I was wrong. I know, surprising, but I was wrong about something massively, wildly wrong. And I'll hit that in the third segment. First off, though, this episode of Locked On Cardinals is brought to you by FanDuel. Official sportsbook at Locked On. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn to get started. So with this, Budda Baker out. Budda Baker has been the leader of this team almost since he came into the league. I mean, you could say Larry Fitzgerald, but Larry Fitzgerald was always a guy in pretty much lead by example. Budda Baker's been the heart and soul of this team. Hasn't always been the best player. He's been the heart and soul of this team since Steve Keim made the best draft move that he made as general manager of the Arizona Cardinals by trading up to the top of the second round of the 2017 draft to nab Budda Baker. 1 pick ahead of the Seattle Seahawks, who would inevitably have taken him going to University of Washington and playing with the Huskies. There is a void in leadership right now. And, Budda Baker still leads from the sidelines. He'll still lead in the locker room, team, everything like that. But there needs to be an on-field leader. And the reason why this is kind of a clunky conversation to have is because Joshua Dobbs isn't the quarterback of the future. Now, he had a great first half. That was probably the best first half of NFL football he's played since coming into the league. It's probably easy, far and away, his best half of football ever in the NFL. Joshua Dobbs isn't the quarterback of the future. He's a guy, you can see that he's endeared himself to the team already. He's one of the guys already, which is great. By all accounts, incredible young man, smart. I mean, he's got talent. He just hasn't shown it in the NFL yet through his handful of years in the league. First half of last week was immaculate almost, aside from that, one miss to Zach Ertz that I talked about. But he's not the leader of the team. He could be a backup moving forward. If Clayton Tune's not their guy, if they keep him on, Clayton Tune moves to the practice squad. I don't know what the future is going to hold for Joshua Dobbs, but he's not really that right now. Okay. Zaven Collins, another guy that I thought of. Jalen Thompson. They're both kind of in the secondary tier of guys that are trustworthy on the field. Jalen Thompson is a set and forget guy. Him and Budda Baker are the set and forget tandem on this roster. But He's not the leader of the team. He doesn't have that carte blanche, I guess. He doesn't have that leader factor, at least not anything outside of leading by example. There needs to be a face. Zaven Collins, he's getting closer, and hopefully you understand in this abstract conversation that I'm having where these players lay in the, I don't know, ranking of leaders on this team. The Cardinals have a bunch. DJ Humphries, an offensive lineman, isn't going to lead the charge. Not going to lead the charge into the future with Budda Baker out. And there is a guy that, is in kind of a rudimentary position. He plays a rudimentary position where you deem him a leader. Normally it's like linebacker, edge rusher, Aaron Donald, whatever he is. I know he's interior defensive line, but he plays his own position. Cornerback. Things like that. To me, it's James Conner. What James Conner did last week, and when James Conner is great and healthy, obviously, it's him. He's the fire on this roster. And it is kind of playing with the aforementioned fire when you give him the ball 23 times in a game. That's got to come down. Because you want him to retire an Arizona Cardinal. And I think that out of all of the guys, Hollywood Brown, Zach Ertz, whoever it is that they've brought in, James Conner's resonated the most in Arizona. It was easy, but not easy. It's hard work, but his monster touchdown numbers 2 years ago, just kind of, that's like a fast track at Disneyland to get to the front of the line. Last year, kind of dropped off a little bit, but he still runs so hard. He's still such an undervalued player in the NFL that with his fire and his performance that we've seen over the first couple of weeks, I think he's the guy. Because there's a lot of, raw leaders who don't really do a whole lot for the team. They're the most inspirational on your high school basketball team. They get the trophy. They're the one everybody likes, usually a bench guy. But it's special to have vocal and performance leaders fused into one. And I think James Conner's the guy to carry this weight until Budda Baker comes back. And I know this, who cares if they're the leader if they're losing? It matters. Every little thing that happens this year matters. I wasn't kidding when I said that win-loss record doesn't matter this year. The Cardinals have bigger issues than their win-loss record for 2023. They've got to undo dysfunction. If they made the playoffs this year and won a playoff game, that's great. And they'd still have the same issues that they'd have to fix if they did that. So yes, it'd be obviously more fun if they're winning games, more buzz, especially with this roster. But when I say it doesn't matter, obviously win-loss matters. And this isn't a green ribbon trophy or, green ribbon, whatever, for 13th place or whatever, participation trophies. That's not what I'm talking about. This is so much more deep-rooted than wins and losses for one season. So when you have your proverbial leader go out, somebody's got to take over. It matters. It matters for the young players. It matters for the coaches. It matters for the team. It matters for cohesion. And that's why, James Conner would be my guy if you're going to anoint somebody else. I know there's a bunch of different captains. I get that. Dennis Gardeck and Kyler Murray's a captain. I get all of that. James Conner's the guy. He's the fire. And yeah, so and one quick thing, there are rumors spouting around that Budda Baker got put on IR because he's going to get traded. I'm going to talk about that in the last segment where I was massively wrong because it ties in a little bit. You're just going to have to wait. Alex Clancy, Locked On Cardinals. Please go to the YouTube channel. Hit the subscribe button. Leave a like on this video. Leave a comment. Yeah. Come and see my big dumb face every day. Why not? Why wouldn't you? It's Arizona Cardinals news. They may go 0-17 this year. We're going to have a hell of a time doing it. We will. This episode of Locked On Cardinals is brought to you by Jace Medical. Okay. So, here's the thing. Don't get caught unprepared. I mean, this is Jace Medical's whole foundation. They provide 5 life-saving antibiotics for emergency use. Okay? With storms, shortages, pandemics, reliance on China, and supply chain issues, we need to be prepared now more than ever. Jace Medical is simple. You go online, you fill out a form, and then you get a prescription of life-saving medication right to your door. The Jace case gives you peace of mind so that you are not just hoping that you have access to medication in an emergency. Jace Medical makes sure you have the medication in hand. I mean, there are times where you are somewhere and you're like, man, I need this type of medication. Man, I need this. I need this. The hospital's too far away, whatever it may be. Obviously, you never hope to get in those situations, but those situations happen. That's where the Jace case comes into play. Save more than $360 by getting these life-saving antibiotics with Jace Medical, plus an additional $20 off by using my code LOCKEDON at checkout on jacemedical.com. That's JASEMEDICAL.com. This episode of Locked On Cardinals is also brought to you by FanDuel. Now, there's never been a better time to swing into the NFL action with FanDuel. First of all, they're America's #1 sportsbook, okay? Because right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. New customers get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get in on the action. The app's super easy to use, and there's a wide range of betting options, including spreads, player props, over-unders, and more. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and kick off the NFL season. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. Locked On Cardinals, your team every day. Alex Clancy here. Follow me on Twitter at Clancy's Corner. If you have questions, you want topics discussed at Clancy's Corner, DM me. My DMs are open, as the kids say. I've got, I can talk about stuff all day long. It's hard to sometimes to do a 20 to 28 minute podcast. It's difficult because there's always a lot to talk about. But if there's something important you want to talk about, DM me, ask a question. I'll pose it. It'll be fun. It's going to be fun. It's always fun because it's football. And this is the transition that the Cardinals have desperately needed for a long time. So while the win-loss record isn't going to be pretty this year, that doesn't mean things aren't getting better and moving and evolving and growing. With that, the biggest question that I've kind of put on ice, because I think it's a fool's errand is too strong, but I think it's just a fool's errand to talk about Kyler Murray's future with the team yet. Because, it's all like, oh, they're going to draft Caleb. How do you know? Oh, because Kyler Murray doesn't. How do you know? We've never seen Kyler Murray with an adult offense in the NFL. We've never seen this mature version of Kyler Murray, period. Now, he's a mature dude, but he gets it. Something clicked this offseason. And you can tell. Maybe he's happy Cliff's gone. I don't know. But the question remains. It's not a matter of if Kyler Murray will be the quarterback of the future for this segment. It's more of an introspection. And just want to let you know, deep dive into the game with the Cowboys tomorrow. Crossover Thursday on Thursday with Marcus Mosher, one of my boys with the Locked On Podcast Network from Locked On Cowboys, one of my favorites. And then more about the game on Friday. But like throughout this, like we could do, oh, well, the PFF grade for player was this. What does that mean? They played well in the first half. They played bad in the second half on Sunday. Pro Football Focus, you can choose which ones fit your arguments. Like that's the beauty and the downfall of numbers is you can find a number that will make your argument or not. I choose to use my eyes and then talk about it. Like Paris Johnson Jr. hasn't allowed a quarterback hit this year. That's a win. He's played 100% of the snaps. That's a win. His Pro Football Focus grade, I think, is a 58.5. The hell does that mean? Anyways. How will Monty Osborne and Jonathan Gannon gauge Kyler Murray's future with the team? How? By what metric? By the eye test? By what he's done up until this point? Does it matter what happens on the field? Like, there's so many different ways to gauge if Kyler Murray is QB1 for the future. Say he comes back in week 8 and they're 1-6. And he plays well and they win 2 more games without him. Or with him. Or he plays poorly and they win 3 games. It's like the wins aren't a quarterback stat. And I've never really gotten behind it. Like some of the big, like Mina Kimes talks about it a lot. And there's a lot of people that I'm like, yeah, you know what? It's true. It's true. I mean, they have a large share. They're a large shareholder of quarterback wins or losses, of team wins or losses. But with this year, in my motif of the win-loss doesn't really matter. Obviously, you want them to win. This isn't about participation trophies. I'm going to say that a lot too. But seeing Kyler Murray in this offense, handful of games, you'll know. That's what I think. So first 2 games, throwaways. You want to see a couple flash plays, things like that. How he commands the offense. If the offense looks better with him than with Joshua Dobbs, that will be a huge determining factor. He's coming off major surgery that happened in December. Okay, so if he comes back in November, less than a year out, which will be on the tail end of the 9 to 12 month range of when players come back, if there are no complications, unless you're Adrian Peterson, who came back in 10 minutes, that's about the time. The offensive line has played fine so far. If he comes back, he's rusty the first week, he's rusty the second week, and you start to see him pop week 3. I think all you need are a couple games just for him to remind himself and solidify the seemingly strong thoughts that Monty Osborne and Jonathan Gannon already have for him. It's like, all right, that's it. They're trading the number 1 pick. And this is very important. This is very important to understand. So say they keep Kyler Murray. Okay, plays fine. He plays Kyler Murray. It's an adult offense. They run the ball more play action, just like, something that's more sustainable in the NFL than, 3rd and 2 go routes. Every single 3rd and short or going for it on 4th down every time instead of punting for field position, calling timeouts, things like that. The playhouse that was the last 4 years with Cliff Kingsbury as head coach. Say he plays fine, okay? They trade the number 1 pick. You get Marvin Harrison Jr., don't worry. They trade the number 1 pick for 3 first-rounders, 2 seconds, and whatever it is. It's going to be the biggest haul in the history of sports with high draft capital. I know that Herschel Walker, there was 10, 12 players that were traded in that, whatever it was. It's not players. It's high draft capital. And then in 2024, it doesn't work. And it's like, okay, this is obvious that we have everything. We're watching everything in place except for Kyler Murray perform in 2024 with more talent, with more players. I'm sure they're going to add free agents next year. It's going to be game on. You can trade him. It's not like a Kyler Murray has to be an Arizona Cardinal quarterback for the next 10 years if they don't draft Caleb Williams this year. So Maybe they make a mistake. Listen, and here's the thing. The beautiful thing about the NFL and football and everything like that, there's going to be a great quarterback that comes out 2 years from now, and the year after that, and the year after that, and the year after that. How will Monty Ossenfort and Jonathan Gannon gauge Kyler Murray's future with the team? Because, with how he plays this season, I think it's going to be very simple. I think it's going to be a positive version of confirmation bias. They already think he's the guy. They just need to see it, lock it in, and say, you know what? He is the quarterback for the future. Hopefully, week 15, week 16, week 17, as the season winds down, there's just going to be Jonathan Gannon press conference. He is our quarterback moving forward. Next question. And if that's the case, the Cardinals may be in the best situation an NFL team has ever been going into an NFL draft where they could arguably have the first and second overall picks. That's how you change the trajectory of an organization. I was wrong. Believe it or not, I was wrong. This episode of Locked On Cardinals is brought to you by Prize Picks. One thing that isn't wrong, ever, is signing up at Prize Picks. That's one thing that's never wrong. Okay, it's the most fun I've ever had, winning up to 25 times my money this football season. And all you have to do is select 2 or more players, pick more or less in their projected stats, and place your entry. Okay, really simple to play. I can make my picks and submit my entry in 60 seconds or less. Super fast withdrawals, easy gameplay, and an enormous selection of players and stat types are what make Prize Picks the #1 daily fantasy sports app. Okay, they offer weekly promotions like Taco Tuesday. Each Tuesday, like today, Prize Picks discounts each select player projections up to 25% to provide even more value. They offer Apple Pay now for quick and easy deposits into your account the entire football season. So go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use code LockedOnNFL for a first deposit match up to $100. I say again, go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use code LockedOnNFL for a first deposit match up to $100. Fine. I was wrong. Okay. Let me just take a sip of coffee here for you. This isn't something I like to admit. It does happen. Cardinals, they were right to move on from DeAndre Hopkins. Some people are like, oh, obviously, it's easy to say now. DeAndre Hopkins, I think I may have fanboyed for the first time in a long time with my thought process there. Like, working in sports radio, little insight here. It kind of, a lot of times, will steal the fan out of you. And that's not to say working in sports radio is bad. It's not. It's one of the greatest jobs on the planet. Absolutely loved it. And this this is the greatest. It's the absolute greatest. But you have to look at things in a more Switzerland-y approach, a little bit more right in the middle, kind of see sides, and different conversations have different angles, and you can't necessarily just always agree with everything the team in the city in which you work does. Like, you just can't do that. DeAndre Hopkins was my favorite receiver in the league when he was in Houston. And he was going through that Andre Johnson path of never getting the real accolades that he deserved. And then coming to Arizona, it's like, oh, my sweet mother. Not only was it the trade of the century with David Johnson them taking his entire contract and giving a second-round pick, you getting DeAndre Hopkins at a fourth back. It's like, what is this? What is this, fantasy football with 2 teams that have never done it before? It's like, it doesn't make any sense. And then he comes here and he absolutely balls out with Kyler Murray, and it's like, okay, this is it. And then 2021 happens. And then last year happens where Kyler tears his ACL. Then DeAndre Hopkins is hurt, but is he hurt? But is he hurt? He's probably hurt, but he may not be hurt, kind of thing, where bad teams, players don't play as much on bad teams as they maybe would on good teams. And that's not to say that he was faking injury. I'm not saying anything like that. No way. But then going into this offseason, it's like, well, damn it. We didn't get to see Hollywood Brown and DeAndre Hopkins on the field at the same time playing meaningful snaps. That was my biggest fear going into last season. That, right? DeAndre Hopkins out for the first 6 weeks. Hollywood Brown gets hurt on the last play of the last game in a game of a blowout in week 6 or second, whatever, one of the last offensive plays. They just high five and you don't see him. And then Kyler Murray tears his ACL. So I think I was holding on to the what could have been last year. And it was 100% the right move to move off from him. It sucks. It does. And it's not because it makes the roster worse, so they lose more games. I will never talk about anything where the angle is, yes, let's have them do that so they have a better chance to lose games. Never, ever. You always want your team to win. Always. You always want the team you're a fan of to win, team you cover. It's more fun to talk about wins. More fun. I mean, we're splitting hairs because this is fun no matter what. But watching him in Tennessee and watching how very few teams wanted him was the weirdest thing. I know he's got the injury. He's the price tag, I'm sure, was something as well. But it was the right move. It was the right move. And it sucks, but it was right. Now, the reason I brought up Budda Baker and said that I would discuss him in this segment also is I believe that he's on the IR. Well, obviously, because he's injured. He's got a hamstring injury. I don't think that they're going to trade him. Like, I don't think that he's a target. Now, do other teams want him? 1,000,000%. They're seeing a bad roster this year with an uphill climb. And they're like, oh, Budda Baker, he's really good. He'd fit in, and that would take whatever team over the top. I've seen the Eagles. Any team that trades for Budda Baker will immediately be better, obviously. But I think that this is a big picture thing. I think that Budda Baker likes being here. I think that Budda Baker did that contract restructuring as such to where he was guaranteed this year. And I talked about this a lot because this is the right way to do business. You pay your best players to get through a bad season. Just keep them happy. He got his money guaranteed. He's got some new incentives in 2024, and it didn't cost the Cardinals a 3-year extension with $30 million guaranteed. Everybody wins. Or everybody compromised at least. And then you revisit next season. But I don't think that this is a precursor to Budda Baker getting traded. I just don't like, he means too much to this organization. They know that. He knows that. Kyler Murray knows that. And everybody involved knows that if they're going to build something, Budda Baker's got to be a part of it. So I was wrong with DeAndre Hopkins for sure. It was the right move. I was right about Budda Baker, in my opinion, that regardless of where his play declines on the field, the roster on defense will incrementally get better, so he won't have to cover for myriad holes on this defense like he's had to over the last couple seasons. This is how you rebuild. You have to keep some veteran pillars who've meant so much to this team on the roster still. And he's been in the league 7 seasons. Like, it's not like he's been in the league for 14 years. Safeties can play well into their 30s. So I implore people to not read too much into this. I think he'll be back and onward and upward into next season with him. Alex Clancy, Locked On Cardinals. Thanks for hanging out. Please go like and subscribe YouTube channel. I'll talk to you tomorrow.